Ask, what do stunning coins and delicious snacks have in common?
Hi, I'm Jack McNamara, and I love stunning and rare coins. Oh, and I also love delicious and scrumptious food, too. Join me as I combine the best of numismatics and tasty treats into one show. Coin Snacks with Jack. Put down that tired bologna sandwich and spice up your lunch as I chat with some of the biggest names in numismatics and eat delicious snacks. From coin news and US Mint releases to rare coins and numismatic oddities. From my all-time favorite coins to ancients and commemoratives, get your numismatic midweek pick-me-up with Coin Snacks with Jack. Plus, we'll eat snacks, lots of them.
Hello, everybody. We are back for another episode of Coin Snacks with Jack. I'm your host, Jack McNamara, and ironically, my doctor is the one that had a heart attack when he saw my most recent cholesterol levels. So there's that. I'd like to thank Sofer for that. We agree that was probably his best joke that he's written to date. Anyway, you can catch me. Right, you're welcome, Sofer. You can catch me right here live on YouTube and Facebook, streaming a new episode live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. And now it is time for our bit of numismatic news. We have to talk about this. This is just the biggest thing, well, that's happened this week. We have to talk about the 2021 Morgan and Peace dollars. Now, we've known for a while that these coins were going to be released, but we have more information now. It has been confirmed that there will be Morgan dollars struck and released from Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. So a P, with no mint mark, a D and an S with mint marks, as well as two very special issues struck at Philadelphia with privy marks. So one will have a little CC to honor and remember the historic Carson City Mint, and another one with a little O privy mark to remember that New Orleans Mint. Now, each of these examples will have a mintage of just 175,000 coins. And then there will be a high relief peace dollar, which will, on the other hand, have a mintage of just 200,000 coins. There's only going to be a P mint of that peace dollar issued in high relief. So just a mintage of 200,000 coins. That's going to be a Philadelphia Mint issue. And listen to this. All of these issues will be struck from 0.999 fine pure silver. So this will make them the very first Morgan and Peace dollars struck by the U.S. Mint in pure silver. This is like a coin collector's dream come true. We've been literally waiting 100 years for this release, and it has to be the numismatic event of the year. So keep your eyes peeled when we will begin offering these treasures here at Rare Collectibles TV. Now, normally, like I'd say that would be the numismatic event of the year, but stay tuned because our guest is actually has designed probably what is really the numismatic event of the year. But before we get to that, I just want to say thank you to everyone who gets my show on the air here every week. We have Joey, we have Sofer, like I said, he wrote that great joke for me. Colleen, who makes the great snacks. We have Nate, Elliot, Alex. Thank you all, everybody, for making this thing run. And make it look smooth, even though it feels completely chaotic at times. This week, we have another great lunch special for all of you. We are going to be giving, and when I say all of you, I'm not talking about the people I just named who help run the show. This is for all of you, our viewers, my fellow coin collectors out there. We're going to be giving 25% off of our 2019S Gem Proof Native American dollar rolls of 20 coins. These coins commemorate Mary Golda Ross, who was the first Native American woman engineer. To this day, her contributions to the space program are celebrated as they helped create the famous Agena rocket, which is pictured launching into space behind Miss Ross on this coin. And this was designed by Emily Damstra. And this coin serves as a remarkable remembrance of a truly historic American. And the special is going on only until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. So do not hesitate to check out our selection. And remember, no code is necessary. You just have to go to our website, rarecollectiblestv.com, and you will get that special automatically if you purchase those rolls of coins. Now, here's an extra special announcement that just got added last minute. This is really exciting. Rare Collectibles TV is going to be offering the highly anticipated Type 2 American Silver Eagle design for pre-sale today. And all of our PCGS coins will come with an exclusive Rare Collectibles TV label signed by Emily Damstra herself. And numismatists across the country have been waiting for this moment. So don't miss your chance to pre-order one of these coins before they're gone. Like I said earlier, normally the release after 100 years of a new Morgan dollar and peace dollar would be the numismatic event of the year, but the redesign of the reverse of the Silver Eagle has eclipsed that even, and now's your opportunity to start locking in these coins, right now while we still have them available. Who knows what's going to happen. These aren't going to be released till later in the year, so delivery probably won't be till the fall, but you are able to make sure you're able to get one now before who knows what's happened. So anyway, now it's time for the big reveal. This week, we are lucky enough to host a prolific coin designer and science illustrator who's created over 40 coin designs for the Royal Canadian and U.S. mints. And these designs include that 2019 Native American dollar reverse that we just spoke about, as well as the new Type 2 American Silver Eagle reverse, which is being released later this year. Today, we have Emily Damstra. Thanks for joining us, Emily.
Thank you so much for having me on your program, Jack.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm really excited to have you and learn all about your history and what you've done and what you're working on. This is really exciting. But before we do that, we need to fuel up a little bit, right? We need some snacks, as always. So before we get into our conversation, Emily, I'm going to invite out Colleen to tell us what is on the menu today.
Okay, well, we can actually thank Emily for the snack for today. So she recommended snickerdoodles and sent us this brilliant recipe. Emily, is that recipe a family recipe or just one that you love?
Well, it's a recipe that I've been making since I was a kid, but I think it originated from an old Betty Crocker cookbook.
Which is always the best, absolutely. So we have the snickerdoodle. And the snickerdoodle, the origin could be from a German, from the word schnickerdoodle, I can't even say it. Or it just could be a fanciful, fun name, snickerdoodle, which is... which just, evokes happiness. Mm-hmm. So, but what I love about talking about the snacks is that food, it just really has such a great history in the country, in the world, just like all the coins that you talk about. So, everything kind of relates. We have, the snickerdoodle is really a delicious buttery cookie that then is then rolled into a mixture of cinnamon and sugar. And cinnamon is, this is an old spice. It's mentioned in the Bible. It's ancient cultures used it. And, for a lot of reasons. And then it was a highly valuable commodity that was traded. Mm. And, cinnamon, we all know that smell. And that's what's so great about it, is that it really does something to our senses. And when you smell it, it invokes and stirs your appetite. It invokes warmness. And it could even invoke joy. Mm-hmm. So we're going to bring some joy, and I hope you enjoy the snickerdoodles and the conversation.
All right. Thank you, Colleen. Those will... absolutely 100% invoke joy. I am 100% certain. I'm excited. I actually, for the first time in my life, made snickerdoodles about a month or two ago. My daughter was like, "Daddy, let's make snickerdoodles." So I feasted pretty good on those, and I'm excited because they're really good. These look delicious. And you have yours there? All right.
I do, and thank you, Colleen. These are delicious. She mailed some to me, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I'm so excited that we were able to get them to you, because you're actually in Canada, so it was a little trickier than ordering from Grubhub or something, and but we made sure you got the homemade same snickerdoodles I have. So I hope they invoke joy in you as well, because I'm smiling just smelling these here.
Yes.
So anyway, let's get into it. Emily, thank you again so much for joining us. Let's just start kind of, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been an artist, just a little bit about who you are.
Sure. Well, thank you again for inviting me to be on your program. It's a pleasure to be here. I guess I should start with where I grew up, which is Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm a Michigander, and I went to college at a very small college in the middle of Michigan, where I was an art major. And I didn't really know what I was going to do with that degree, not even when I graduated. And I'm extremely grateful to my parents, who never discouraged me from becoming an artist, despite their reservations about how I might make a living as an artist. So they were always very encouraging. But after I graduated, I learned about this program for a master's degree at the University of Michigan in science illustration. And that really appealed to me, because I always liked to draw from observation and draw realistically. And my favorite subjects were nature. So I'm really interested in science and nature. So that was right up my alley. So I applied for and got into that 2-year program. And then when I graduated, I immediately started a career as a freelance illustrator, where I illustrated all sorts of plants and animals and fossils and ecosystems for quite a wide range of different purposes. Sometimes science illustrations are in books or magazines, or you might see them on signs in zoos and museums, sometimes even on product packaging. There's a pretty wide range of uses for science illustration. So that also really appealed to me, the varied subject matter that I get to illustrate. And I guess I eventually met and married a Canadian and moved to Ontario, which is where I now live. And at some point during that time, I began designing coins for the Royal Canadian Mint. And that eventually, I guess, gave me a good footing to apply for the Artistic Infusion program for the United States Mint. And that's how I started designing United States coins.
And I was looking around your website, and I love seeing all these images of bugs and animals and stuff, and it's interesting because I never kind of thought about how many places that scientific illustrations of animals appear. I see them here where I live. I go hiking, and there's signs with beware of rattlesnakes or coyotes and things that are here. And even on our coins, I kind of never, I guess I take it for granted. I mean, in the U.S., almost all our coins have an eagle, at least traditionally. But there are so many other coins that do have these animals and plants and things, and it's kind of, I guess, something I took for granted. But seeing it on your website and seeing that they're using brochures and packaging and signs and stuff really kind of just made me aware of it, like something it's there every day and I see it, but I kind of took for granted, where do these images come from? They don't just appear out of the sky. Someone is actually creating all of this artwork, so it's cool. Clearly nature has influenced you. Are there certain artists that kind of have influenced your style, or and works of art?
Well, it's hard to say that there are specific artists, but I suppose I would have to give credit to all of my art instructors over the years. Since high school, even I had a really great high school art teacher, Ms. Rose, and she was wonderful and very inspiring. And I had a number of great art instructors in college and in graduate school, including my graduate school advisor, Joe Trumpy, who guided me very carefully. And yeah, he was a great influence. So aside from the instructors, it's hard to say that other artists' styles would affect or influence my own style, but certainly other artists' work inspires me to try to be a better artist. So I feel that pressure a lot when I see great art.
So it seems like your influence and inspiration is more kind of, your surroundings and nature and things more so than...
Exactly. Yes, I would say so.
That's interesting, and, we often obviously see animals depicted in nature on your coin designs. And since you're a science illustrator, this type of subject is seen on your other, a lot of your other works as well. Like, how did your fascination with nature and animals and, how did that begin?
I suppose it began when I was a kid, and when I was growing up, there was, for a time being, before it was developed into housing, there was a forest in my backyard, and so my brothers and I would explore the forest. And my mom really encouraged my interest in nature. She really instilled in me a sense of appreciation and curiosity for nature. She gave me a field guide to butterflies, and that led me to have a little butterfly collection. And she let me help, or inspired me to help with the gardening around the house. And so I guess just being outdoors in that setting set the footing for me, my interest in nature.
That's great. Yeah, I love, as a kid, I used to catch lightning bugs, and I remember catching newts and box turtles and things so I get it. Although I was a really good artist in first grade, and I'm still a really good artist for a first grader, but so I kind of haven't really passed that. But I do appreciate the nature, and I do love seeing that subject matter on coins. To me, it's interesting to see. I love seeing this design on our screen with this butterfly on the tall grass prairie. The beaver, I love the motion on this. I love seeing his tail flipping the water up. It adds such a liveliness to the design to me.
Thank you.
So you've created approximately 40 designs between the U.S. Mint and the Royal Canadian Mint, which is a pretty impressive accomplishment. It sounds like when you were, a girl, going through the woods and gardening and, catching butterflies, you probably didn't imagine that, millions and millions of people would be seeing your artwork every day. So that's quite an accomplishment. Of these numismatic designs, what are some of your personal favorites?
Well, of those I've created myself, the coins I've designed myself, you've already just shown two of my favorites, I'd say. The one with the beaver just about to slap its tail, or just having slapped its tail against the water. That's one of my favorites of the Canadian coins I've worked on, because I really like the story it tells. If you look closely on the left, you see a wolf standing on a rock in front of the trees, and so you begin to put together the story of how the beaver is slapping its tail to warn its family members that there's potential danger nearby. And like you said, I really like the arc of water and the movement there. And I think metal is the perfect medium for this, because it sort of glistens like water droplets would glisten. So I think I like the story behind that one.
And it's such a different kind of look than we're used to seeing on coins. There's a lot more action happening here than we see on a lot of coins, where we're used to seeing, a portrait of someone, or even like a heraldic eagle design where it's very kind of motionless. Here you see so much action here, and to me it's really cool. And like you said, the way the water droplets glisten because it's struck in silver, it gives it such a cool look. Yeah, I love that one too. I'm with you on that one. Let's see this. Let's see the butterfly one there, Joey.
Yeah. So I would say this of the coins I've designed for the United States, this would be my favorite. And I think that's largely due to the subject matter. I'm just in my personal life, I'm passionate about native plants and insects. And so here we have both of those in a coin design. There's the iconic prairie grasses of big blue stem and Indian grass. And then there's the butterfly is a regal fritillary. And I always try to incorporate action or movement in my designs when it's possible or makes sense. And so I've tried to show the wind blowing through the grasses in this design.
Yeah, I was going to say, it gives it such a feeling. Like you can see just the arc of the grass that, you know, even without thinking about it subconsciously, I'm feeling like, you know, there's clearly a breeze happening here in this image. So it gives it such a, again, I love that there's motion in these designs. It's so different than a lot of the coin designs we're looking at. That's great. Let's see. So what is the big, you know, you pointed out that, you know, that last coin was your favorite U.S. Mint design, and the beaver was kind of your favorite for the Royal Canadian Mint. You know, what's the biggest difference designing a coin for the U.S. Mint versus the Royal Canadian Mint?
Well, I would say that the reason for the differences is that in the United States, as you and most of coin collectors will know, the coin themes are chosen by legislation. And so once that legislation has passed, that coin theme is set in stone, and the United States Mint has to go by that theme. And also, I think part of the design or the review process in the United States is also set by Congress. But that's not the case for the Royal Canadian Mint. From what I understand, the themes for the coins, as well as the design and review process, happen within the Royal Canadian Mint. And so it's much more of a collaborative process between myself and the folks at the Royal Canadian Mint. And there's a lot of back and forth along the way. And, you know, they review early design ideas and we go back and forth about them before sort of selecting which idea to develop into the final design. But sometimes the theme for Canadian coins will change during the process of that collaboration, and of course that can't happen in the U.S. because of the legislation.
Okay, so it sounds like in Canada there's a little more flexibility with the design then, it sounds like you have a little more input from a creative standpoint of what you're allowed to do, and if you think things should go a different direction, they can have that option if they agree with your vision.
Yes, I would say that's true, but I should add that for the United States Mint, there's still a lot of artistic freedom. You know, once the coin theme is set, that can't be changed. But within that theme, there's still a great amount of artistic freedom that the U.S. Mint doesn't. They want to give us as much freedom as possible.
Right. And that makes sense because I mean now I'm thinking about, you know, the new reverse of the Silver Eagle, which we'll talk more about momentarily here. But you know, there were, I forget, like 40 different designs that were submitted. I know there were a lot of different designs, and you know they all had eagles. We know that was mandated, but there were some very different looking eagles than what you designed. So that makes sense to me. So that's good as an artist that you're not too stifled. we want to see the creative, new work and not the same coins we've seen for 200 years here. So of the coins that you've designed, what did you find kind of the most challenging for you to create, and what made it challenging?
Well, the particular coin that I found to be most challenging, it was actually a metal design that I did, but the whole process is the same essentially as coin design. And that was the World War I centennial silver medal, and this one was for the Army. And the reason this was such a challenge for me is that it was the first military themed coin or medal that I'd worked on. So this was a really different theme compared to the nature designs that I'm accustomed to. Right. And so required a lot of research. I always do a lot of research, but this required more different research than what I'm used to. And there's so many details that I have to get accurate about their uniforms and helmets and rifles and tools. And so I found that all to be quite challenging, and it was a steep learning curve. I never imagined, excuse me, that I would be searching for what German barbed wire looked like in a career.
Right. Yeah, a little bit of a variance from your normal nature themes, and a very different feel. I mean, I feel a little more tension here than I do when I'm looking at your butterflies and you know, grass blowing in the breeze than than when I look at these guys, you know, pinned down with you know, barbed wire and kind of, you know, even the parts of this image that are nature, you know, you see these trees in the background that have been, you know, blown apart and decimated. It's you know, you definitely convey a very different feeling in this than your nature works.
That comes across. I'm glad that comes across. This was definitely a challenging design, but I'm very fortunate in that I happen to be married to somebody who's in the armed forces, and he's a rifleman, so he knows how to hold a rifle, and so he gave me a lot of pointers, and he posed for my design. And so both of those figures in my design are based on poses that my husband did, and they're not like of him, but they're based on his poses.
Right, so you know the proper positioning of how the rifle's being held and everything.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's a very different look. And I'm just curious too then, like, how did you end up doing this one? Because it's such a diversion from your normal, you know, do they approach you to do this, or do you find out it's available and you submit designs? Like, because it is such a different, you know, arc of your normal work.
Right. Well, it's always the case with Uverse that they approach me and say, we have this program, here's the theme, are you interested and available to work on it? So that was one of those instances where I said yes with great trepidation, knowing that there was a steep learning curve ahead of me. But it was really interesting, and I did enjoy a lot of the research for that. So
and you didn't say, oh, World War I, how's a butterfly?
I wish. If I could put a butterfly in every design, I probably would.
So, do you have any personal favorite designs, you know, U.S. or Canadian, that you'd like to share with our viewers?
Well, I guess I assume you're referring to designs that that I haven't necessarily created, but that I just like on my own. So yeah,
or actually even foreign. I know you showed me one. I think we had another one too that wasn't U.S. or Canadian per se. But yeah, like what designs do you like of other designers?
Well, there's a series of Canadian coins that came out in 1967, and these were designed by the Canadian artist Alex Colville. And I really like these designs. I like their simplicity and their focus on a single animal, and yet there's still an action and a bit of a story in each one. And I'm talking about the 6 that you see on the bottom of the screen, not the one on the top there.
Right. Yeah, I love that bobcat. I like this series too. It reminds me too, I don't know if you've ever seen the Republic of Ireland coins from like the 1920s and through kind of pretty much the 20th century, where they had, each denomination had a different animal. This reminds me a little bit of that series. But these are beautiful.
I'm going to have to look it up. So thank you.
We'll have to find some and send them to you because they're cool.
Yeah.
But and then were there others? There was that let's see if you got it.
There was
this one I loved. I never saw this until you sent this image to us, and I was like, this is great.
Yeah, this is a Latvian coin, 1 lat, and there's a whole series of these that are really creative, and I think they all have the number and the letters in the same place, but then a different design element on each one. But this is my favorite. I just love that it's focused on a tiny insect, and of course I love insects, so that helps. But you know, it's you can kind of see personality in that ant. And I love the negative space around it. And I'm a little envious with this design that the designer only had to work with one numeral and 4 letters, because in most of the work I do, there's a lot more inscription than that. And so,
because U.S. coins, by law, we have a lot of mottos. We have, United States of America, we have denominations, we have In God We Trust, we have all these things that have to get in there.
That's right. Yeah, it's a lot of text to squeeze in. So, yeah, I love that.
I never thought about that challenge so much, but I mean, it's already got to be challenging to create something small enough. I mean, even a silver eagle, which is a big coin by coin standards, but it's still, yay big. When you have a smaller coin, a quarter, and then you've got to fit all this text around it, you really are working in a tiny area.
It's true, and we artists we have to follow guidelines about how much spacing between the letters and how fine the serifs can or cannot be, and what's the minimum size for each letter. So text is never an afterthought. It's always something I spend a lot of time on in my coin design work.
So I'm guessing then, do you have to kind of lay all that out first before you really start putting your, whether it's an eagle or butterfly, do you kind of have to lay in the text first so you kind of know what you're working with then?
Well, sometimes I start with the text first, but not always, because a lot of the times it's where the text goes depends on what the main design device is.
Right,
and I don't always know that up front. So I sort of have to work together, the text and the design element together. I have to work at them at the same time.
Huh. So the Artistic Infusion program has brought some, just stunning coins to U.S. numismatics. What inspired you to reach out to the U.S. Mint for their Artistic Infusion program?
Well, as I mentioned before, I had started doing coin design work for the Royal Canadian Mint. And then after a few years of that, I started that in 2010. And then in 2014, my sister Carolyn, who's also an artist, she sent me this call for artists by the US Mint. And this call for artists for the Artistic Infusion program is required that the artist be a United States citizen, but not necessarily living inside the United States. So I qualified, and since I'd already been doing work for the Royal Canadian Mint, and some of my designs had been minted, which really gave me the confidence to think that maybe I could keep doing this. And I love doing it. I love trying to distill a story to its essence for the tiny canvas of a coin. So it was a no-brainer for me to apply, and I was extremely excited and grateful to be accepted into the program.
Yeah, it sounds like you are probably one of a very, very small amount of people in the world who had the resume that kind of exactly fit what they were looking for. Now, as the national bird of the United States, the eagle, we've talked about this, it's been on most of our coins for quite a while now. It shows up on a lot of our coinage. So when you were designing this, what we're calling the Type 2, the new reverse for the American Silver Eagle, did you look at kind of previously struck U.S. coins for inspiration at all, or were you just looking at kind of, eagles in nature?
Well, I definitely looked at previous U.S. coins, and as you know, there are a lot of them. There's many different designs that include eagles, but I was looking to them not for inspiration, but because I needed to know what had already been done, because I knew that I wanted to do something new and different. So it was important to understand, what was already out there. And I would say I looked, more toward nature, but also symbolism for inspiration.
Interesting, but it makes sense. Yeah, with so many eagles, I guess without doing some homework, you could have probably come up with something that look similar to something that was previously done pretty easily.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So what was your process then, kind of, for designing this Type 2 reverse that that the Mint's releasing later this year?
Well, I was really excited to get this assignment, as you might imagine, and I understood how important these the gold and silver coins are to collectors, the American Eagle coins. So I was grateful for the opportunity, and I really felt the pressure. I was actually assigned to design the reverse of the American Eagle gold coin. So the whole time during my design process, I was imagining that if my design were selected, it would be replacing the current reverse of the gold coin, which was designed by Miley Tucker Frost. And so that was forefront in my mind. And at the outset of this assignment, the U.S. Mint sent to all the artists who would be working on this coin a little description of what Miley Tucker Frost's inspiration was. And this, I felt really inspired by this. And so I actually want to read that, because I don't want to get it wrong, but I feel like it's important because it definitely influenced my own design.
Okay.
So this is what I received from the United States Mint. They said that Miley Tucker Frost's design was inspired by the hopelessness she saw in the face of a lonely youth she witnessed, and a wish to utilize this tiny billboard, this coin's design, to send a message to every American, a reminder of how much we care for our people. She chose to depict a family of eagles as a symbol of what we stand for as Americans, noting eagles will steadfastly withstand all kinds of weather to protect and nurture their eaglets. She had observed an American eagle pair as they took turns refreshing their nest over the Platte River. She posited that eagles return year after year to the same nest and mate for life. In her observations, she noted that eagles were not only strong and courageous, but also compassionate, caring, and dedicated, much like America itself.
Wow.
So I felt that was very inspiring. And
yeah,
when I look at her design, I understand that there's more to it than just a nicely composed design that was well thought out. I understood that there was a symbolism to it, but it was really great to hear her explain it in such detail. And so when I worked on my design, I also wanted to have that same feeling behind it and that same inspiration, and I was thinking about American values and what American values might I try to highlight with my design. So as I thought about the life cycle of bald eagles, I thought about nest construction as something that might be a way to highlight American values like diligence and like cooperation, because both the male and female of a mated pair of eagles work on the nest together. And also they, of course, construct their nests for the care and protection of their young. So I liked the idea of showing nest building. And so I began looking for images of eagles' nests and of eagles carrying branches and landing and building nests. And I used those images as inspiration for and reference material for some sketches that I eventually developed into this design that you see here. And you may notice that there isn't a nest in the design, but the fact that the eagle is carrying a branch implies that there's a nest, because that's really the only likely reason an eagle would be carrying a branch, is if it's either building or repairing its nest. And so that's how I developed the design, and that sort of makes it sound like there's a lot of action and it's a step-by-step process. But if I'm being truthful, a lot of the process of coin design, including this coin design, is me just staring at a blank page in my sketchbook or I'm staring at my computer monitor with a half-completed design, thinking to myself, how can I make this work? And so it's a lot of just staring and thinking for me. And sometimes I find this frustrating because it doesn't feel productive, but I remind myself that it is an
Right, it's all
important
part of the process, right?
That's right. Yeah.
I found it interesting too that it was a and we discussed this when we first chatted yesterday, that I'm used to always seeing, anytime you see a branch, it's 90% of the time it's that olive branch, and you chose the oak branch, which I thought was interesting. You talk about that for a second?
Sure. Well, the symbolism in this, there's both the eagle and the oak. I think the eagle kind of speaks for itself as a symbol. It's a symbol that has American origins, and so I think it's my favorite American symbol. And you don't really need to have its symbolism described, because all you have to do is see a bald eagle, and you just get the sense of its dignity and its majesty and its strength just by seeing one. But it has American origins because the bald eagle is endemic to North America. It doesn't live, in Europe or Asia. It's entirely in North America. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the same reasons I like the oak as a symbol, because while there are oak species in many different countries in the world, there are quite a few species of oaks in the United States. And so it is a native species to the United States. In fact, there are probably over 60 species of oaks in the United States in a range of different habitats. And the oak tree became America's national tree in 2004. So it's an official national symbol. And it's long been held as a symbol of strength and of longevity. And oak trees, when they're allowed to grow and thrive, can turn into just incredibly impressive trees. So it's a great symbol with American origins again. And also oaks are really important because of all the tree genera in the United States, oaks are the ones that support the most wildlife. So they're probably the most ecologically valuable tree in the United States. So I just love oaks for that reason, and for the reason that they're a great American symbol. So I tend to think of oaks as a very patriotic tree, and I think planting an oak is a very patriotic act.
Wow, that's great. This is why I do this. I always learn something. I had no idea really any of that. That's great. I mean, I had read, that, it's a sign of strength, but I didn't know all of this, that it supports so many species and that there's 60 different kinds. That's so great.
Yeah, it's a remarkable tree.
So how do you, when people see this coin, when coin collectors, see this new reverse on this, Type 2 Silver Eagle, how do you hope people feel?
Well, I guess I hope they feel reverence for the eagle and for the oak. That's my main thing, and maybe that the values that I had in mind when I created the design, the diligence and cooperation and care and protection, I hope those come across and convey the American values, that I was thinking of.
Mm-hmm. It makes me smile.
Well, thank you. I'm glad for that.
So what do you think, like, this eagle is kind of thinking and feeling and flying through the air, the way you design this new reverse? Like, he looks a little intimidating to me.
Well, I think bald eagles in general look intimidating because they have this like ridge above their eye that almost gives them a stern or even.
Yeah, it's kind of like a furrowed brow. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's just their anatomy, so they can't help it. But I suppose that because this eagle is in the process of building or constructing its nest, the nest is implied; it's not shown in my
Right.
design. But, as I said before, that's the only reason it would be carrying the branch. I guess I'm imagining that this eagle would be wondering where it's going to put this branch in the nest, how it's going to incorporate it into its nest. That's what I imagine it's thinking.
Right. What is the next step to strengthening my home here, I guess.
Or maybe it's thinking about where it's going to land. I don't know.
Right.
It must
right.
be tricky to land on a nest when you've got a branch in your talent.
I would imagine so. Now, I know there were 39 designs submitted in total and these designs could have been used for either the Silver Eagle or the American Gold Eagles.
Right.
Can you tell us about any other designs that you proposed that were not selected?
Sure. There were a total of 3 designs in that pool of 39 that were mine, and they all had to do with eagles and oaks. And so here's one that's a variation on the one that was selected. And this one you can actually see part of the nest in the design. And then in the background, there's the other eagle in the mated pair coming toward the nest with the branch.
Right. So this is a little more literal look at that kind of cooperation and nest building. But the
Exactly.
eagle, the main eagle in the center here is very similar to the one that ended up being used.
Yeah, it's the same eagle, right?
Looks like the branch is a little different, but the eagle's
Yeah,
the same. Huh?
yeah. I added oak leaves to the one that was selected. That's right. And
That's neat.
and so then there was another one that also included 2 eagles, and these were soaring eagles. And then there's an oak branch that's sort of reaching skyward, and I like the whole spiral sort of movement of the elements in this design.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like this a lot because, again, it's a very different look than I've seen, and this is you're looking straight up. This reminds me of some of those Canadian coins I've seen that you designed of the canopies of the trees, which I really love too, because it's such a different perspective than we're used to seeing on a coin.
Yeah, the Canadian Mint did a whole series of these maple canopy coins where you're looking up into the canopy of maple trees. So those were a lot of fun to work on, and also gives me an opportunity to use color in my coin designs, which is not a common occurrence.
Right. But yeah, that last Silver Eagle, if we can go back to that, it's very much that kind of a perspective. You're looking straight up, which I don't recall ever seeing on a U.S. coin. I don't think I've ever seen that perspective used. That's cool. And like you said, it has a spiraling feel to it. The way the top of the tree is curving, and the motion of that central eagle is it's kind of all of the imagery is kind of just corkscrewing like around the coin. It's such a different look. I like that. I would have been happy if they picked that one too.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Sure. Now, I was speaking to John Mercanti, a month or 2 back when he was on our show, and he was telling me that he feels that there's quite a bit of overlap between sculpting and drawing. Is your approach to designing coins, similar to the one you utilize if you're, painting or illustrating, or are they different?
Oh, I would say they're very similar, almost entirely the same, because coin design and illustration, they both rely on all the same principles of two-dimensional design. You've got to consider the negative space, and you've got to have a balanced composition, and you've got to decide which details or elements are necessary and which are just clutter. So yeah, it's a very, very similar, if not completely the same process. Yeah, I would say so.
And clearly, I guess the one difference is that coins are eventually going to be taken from a 2-dimensional image to a 3D rendition of your work. And I know that for the U.S. Mint Artistic Infusion program, the designer creates the design, which you've done here, and then there's an engraver who then will sculpt it. So how closely did you work with U.S. Mint engraver Michael Gaudioso to ensure that your design, translated into relief, the way that you envisioned it?
Well, that's a great question. It's a collaboration in the sense that we both contribute our artistic skills to the final product, but it's unfortunately not a collaboration like I don't get to any FaceTime with the engraver, the sculptor engraver. They take my design and they interpret it into low relief. So once I submit my final design, my participation ends, and I just have to make an effort to define each element clearly so that the sculptor can interpret it easily. And the sculptors have so many decisions to make as they create these low relief sculptures. It truly is an art, and I have so much respect for the work they do. And I'm so glad that the United States Mint recognizes the sculptor engravers by including their initials on each coin along with those of the designer.
So once you submit it and it's finalized, you just have to rely on their interpretation of your shading and light and dark. So you don't have
That's
any,
right.
They don't kind of say, what do you think of this? Is this right?
No, there's no back and forth between me and the sculptor. No.
So it's kind of like sending your kid off on the first day of school. You're like, I think it's going to be good.
That's right, but I have complete trust in what they do, so I never worry.
Good. So you're happy with how the sculptors work. Good.
Yes. Yes.
I'm looking forward to seeing, because I was going to say I feel like they did a good job, but honestly, I've only seen it in 2 dimensions so far. They haven't released these yet. So
Me too. I'm eager to see the sculpt as well.
But I agree with you. I'm not worried. I'm sure they've consistently done a great job at the U.S. Mint, so I'm sure it's going to be amazing. Now, with your new reverse design for the American Silver Eagle, you're now in the company of some of the greatest coin designers to grace American coinage. What does it feel like to be in the company of numismatic legends like Augustus St. Gaudens and Adolph Weinman and John Mercanti? What's that feel like?
Well, it's a little strange to hear you say that, but I guess first I would add to your list Miley Tucker Frost because of her design on the reverse of the American Eagle Gold. But I think that those people are numismatic legends because their designs have stood the test of time. Mm-hmm. And it's far too early to say that about my own work. So I wouldn't put myself in their company, at least not at this point in my career.
Well, we're gonna lump you in there. I think you did a great job. I love the design, and I'm looking forward to seeing it in person. But I'm just really excited about it. Before we go, we do always give $1,000 to the charity of your choice, and we're going to be donating $1,000 to the National Forest Foundation, who is the charity you selected. Can you tell us a little bit about the National Forest Foundation and why you selected that as your charity?
Well, I selected the National Forest Foundation because I felt like it had a connection to my coin design in that I used oaks and their symbolism in my coin design for the American Eagle Silver. And so I thought it would be appropriate to choose a charity that had something to do with tree planting, and that might be planting oaks. So that's why I chose them.
Well, that's great. And like you said, I didn't know that before, but planting some oaks will, besides helping our forests and our trees, it will help a lot of animals. It sounds like
True. Very true.
Would you say host to more animals than any other species of tree?
Well, it supports more wildlife than any other tree genus.
Okay.
Yeah, the genus Quercus is the genus of all oak trees. If you're an oak, if you're in the genus Quercus, and as I said before, there's over 60 species in the U.S. So there's a range to choose from. But if you plant one that's native to your own area, that would support the most wildlife.
Well, that's great. I'm glad we could help the cause, because I love going out and hiking with my kids and spending time outdoors. So it's something that's special to me too. And of course, coins. And I really appreciate you coming on here today. I love the artwork. I'm so excited, with this new design that's coming out, and some of those prior ones. I love the beaver. I love, seeing these different perspectives and different feelings of motion that you put into your coinage. So as a coin geek, thank you so much. Really, really admire your art and really appreciate you coming on today. So thank you so much, Emily.
Well, thank you, Jack. It was a real pleasure talking to you today. And thanks again for having me on your program.
Sure, you're quite welcome. You're quite welcome. That's about all the time we have today. Before I go, though, don't forget, and let's put it up on the screen again here for a second, we're going to have that new pre-release of the new Silver Eagle with Emily's design on the reverse, the Type 2 reverse. This is the Uverse, but you can see that label. This is an exclusive label that Rare Collectibles TV is going to be the only company offering with this artwork with Emily's signature, certified by PCGS. Go to our website, rarecollectiblestv.com, and you'll be able to pre-order these coins. They're not even released yet, so these coins are pre-order for delivery later in the year. But go check that out right now, rarecollectiblestv.com. And thank you so much. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel. We'll be here again next Wednesday, 3 o'clock Eastern, noon Pacific, on YouTube and Facebook, live every week with coins and other special numismatic guests. See you next week.
Thanks for watching Coin Snacks with Jack. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you never miss an episode of Coin Snacks. Visit us at rarecollectiblestv.com.